Thank you, Tom. Yeah, Journey to a Better Way, not exactly the catchiest title. I worked as hard as I could to find a two-word title, and I couldn't find one. I think that's the thing to do, one word or two words, to kind of capture the imagination. All the conferences that you see these days, there's one word, I think some folks are at Catalyst right now. And I couldn't figure out a one-word title because I've always been fascinated by the journey metaphor. Is there anybody else here? I heard some people allude to C.S. Lewis. Anybody else here a big fan of C.S. Lewis and maybe the Chronicles of Narnia? Yeah. I was reading the Chronicles of Narnia to my children last year. I'll put this down here. And these stories of boys and girls separated from their parents, going to a whole nother world, fulfilling prophecy, becoming kings and queens, being transformed on this journey. This just captivates our hearts. And my kids are just enthralled, and I'm enthralled, and I'm reading these stories and just love the journey image, the journey metaphor. It's fascinating. I think it captivates us. The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, all of those nerdy stories that I love and follow. In Scripture is filled with stories of people on journey. I think the arc of Scripture talks about God sending people on journey, beginning with Abraham and the children of Israel and Jonah and Joseph and Elijah, and then even Jesus, who took that great celestial journey from heaven to earth to be our Savior. And then he asked his disciples, "Follow me." Paul was sent on journey. I love this image, and I think it's helpful for us. It's frustrating. Those of us that are goal-oriented, that want to get there, the journey, learning to appreciate the journey, where we're going, can be frustrating. There's always we want to get there. There's always that desire as well to try to make our plans. We realize we're on a journey, and we think, I'm going to make plans for this. I know where God's sending me. And of course, what happens? God changes the plans. There's twists and turns in the journey. And so that can be frustrating. But a little bit about myself, our journey. See if I can find, yeah. So somebody talked about that movie, The Blind Side. Do you remember that scene in The Blind Side where the young man that they had adopted was in their Christmas card, and their friends called Doll, I think you have a young man in your Christmas card that doesn't belong there, from Memphis. This was our Christmas card from 1975. That's me down below in the plaid pants. Those were the skinny jeans of 1975. By the way, that was the hip thing to wear. And you'll notice that there's somebody that doesn't fit in that picture. I imagine my mama got a few of those phone calls. "Darling, there's somebody in your Christmas card that doesn't belong there. Is there a Chinese girl?" "No, she's not Chinese. She's Cambodian." This is Dow Pham. She came to live with us for a year in the early 70s as she escaped the atrocities of the Khmer Rouge. She and her family literally fled and got on boats and came to the United States. And she stayed with us for a year. We journeyed with her for a year as she sought to be reconciled with her family and find her family. And she eventually, after about a year, found her brother and started a new life there. And that was the first image, the first idea that I had about the importance of journeying with folks through their struggles. And my parents and the church I was a part of really instilled that importance of that journeying together and of being in relationship with one another as we go through this, as we participate in God's mission. And so I knew that eventually, someday, that my journey would take me to be in full-time ministry. I kind of had that I knew that would happen, but I had my plans. I had the way I wanted to go, and I figured that first I would have a successful career in business, that's what I wanted to do, and go work for a Fortune 100 company and have a good retirement and pension, and then later in life go to seminary, maybe teach, maybe be a missionary, serve as a pastor, something like that. That was my plans for my journey. God had different plans. In 2004, that someday came true. I was working for a Fortune 100 company. I had a great retirement package. I had it planned out when I'd retire, when the whole thing would work out, and I could leave and do the thing I really loved. And that Fortune 100 company got purchased by another Fortune 100 company, and my pension and everything disappeared, and I was out of a job. And God opened a door for me to work at our local church in our missions department. And we were a very missionally minded congregation. We had a very vibrant and alive mission team, and I was invited to be a part of the work that we were doing there. It was an extraordinary opportunity. I'm so grateful that God gave me that opportunity to go work there. It was, just to give you a little idea, we were sending 26 international teams a year from our church, and our budget was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a year that we were sending to our mission partners, and also that we were spending on our mission projects around the world. So it was a great laboratory to learn a lot about the good and the not so good. And we began to explore what we were doing. At first, when I first started, I didn't give much thought to mission models. I didn't give much thought to what we were doing. I figured that our job was just to meet the need. If people were hungry, we fed them. If they were thirsty, we gave them water. If they were naked, we clothed them. And we didn't think much beyond that at all. But we began to ask some questions. Some things began to come up in some of our work, and we began to start asking questions. Is this really good? Is this sustainable? We sent several medical mission teams a year to the same places, seeing the same people over and over again. And we were offering what we knew to be just temporary relief. And we weren't looking at the systemic problems. We were just handing out aspirins and giving deworming medicines and that sort of thing. We began to say, is this really doing any good? What is this? And extraordinary amounts of money being spent to do this. And began to ask, why are we doing what we're doing? I was listening to our Michael talk last night, and the economy. We had one situation where we would literally bring hundreds of pounds of free medicines that were donated from physicians in our community to these places. And we had a situation where there was a conflict between the free medicines that we had in the clinic that was selling the exact same medicines to survive. And how did we work that out? And that was very difficult. One young man got so frustrated with this sort of thing, he said, I can't participate in this kind of medical mission trip. And he, 22 years old, graduated from college. The day after he graduated, literally packed his car up, his truck, drove from Alabama to Honduras, and started a water filter business, Ray. He's installing water filters in Honduras. Last month, he installed his 1,000th water filter. He's been there 7 years, and just couldn't do it anymore. He said, I can't participate in this sort of thing anymore. So asking questions can be dangerous because you never know. You're talking about those 4 realms. You start asking questions, individuals may just decide, enough, I'm going to go do something. And he did, and he went off and did that. So we began to dig into some of the questions and look at our models and consider what we were doing. And were the things that we were doing healthy, or were they unhealthy? We kind of thought that maybe we were doing better when we began to sort of shift our focus and emphasis as a team towards medical missions or missions that were supporting indigenous leaders in the places where they were. Basically, the model that we felt was more healthy was one where the financial support, the prayer support, the encouragement for indigenous leaders, whether they were doing evangelism or church planting or medical work or whatever, our job was to be that financial support, and they actually did the work there. And it became, we thought that was better. We thought that was good. We thought having us provide the finances and them do the work was healthy. Well, that was all well and good until we had a perfect storm impact our missions budget in 2008. First, it was the recession of 2008 that we're all familiar with. I think we're all impacted by that, but it was even worse in my particular setting because we had just launched on a significant building campaign. And those who have worked in the church are familiar with it. Building campaigns and mission budgets can many times be in tension together, to say the least. And so our missions budget was being significantly reduced, maybe 25% or more. And I had to make some phone calls and some visits around the world to talk to some people about reducing the amount of support that we were sending them. And those were some of the most painful calls and visits that I've ever had to do. One of them, it was a pastor in Russia that we were supporting and had supported for years. And through conversations with him about reducing support based on what was going on, we learned that we were his sole source of financial support, that 100% of his income came from our missions budget. And we had to begin the process of weaning him off of that. And again, that was very difficult, very painful. In the end, it turned out to be a great thing for him because, again, we can look at this later, but the strings and the requirements that those finances put on him did not allow him to do what God had really called him to do. And freeing him up allowed him to go into the ministry that God had really called him to do. Two of my guys that were going to Ethiopia to wrap up some work that we were doing there were returning home. And as a matter of fact, we were celebrating 3 years of very successful pastor training and equipping and other work that we were doing. But of course, at the end of that week, a couple of the leaders asked my leaders if we would be willing to support an orphan project that they were beginning. And of course, we had to tell them no because our mission budget was being reduced. And these guys called me, and they were just, down in the dumps and a little sad and a little disheartened, and explained what they had to do. And I encouraged them and, sent them on. And we had been praying. We said, Lord, show us how we can move into a better way. Show us what the it is. We know that this is not it. This is painful. This is difficult. It's not supposed to be this way. Something's wrong, and we need help. And we were really crying out to God. When these two guys came home from Ethiopia, they were this high off the ground and just excited. And I said, what happened? What went on? And their last night before they were leaving, they stayed in a guest house in Addis on their way home, and they happened to sit across the table from a lady named Dr. Florence Muindi at their dinner. And she obviously could tell that they were down, and she talked to them and said, what's going on? And they explained what they had been through over the last few years. And she began to talk to them about the ministry that she had started called Life in Abundance International. Florence is the founder and the president of Life in Abundance. It's a ministry that works in the Horn of Africa and Haiti and Jamaica. Florence is a Kenyan physician, and she's seen missionaries from all around the world coming in and out of her country for years, and she has decided to do things differently. And she's decided to do mission work that she calls holistic transformational development. Now, I refer to it as capacity building mission work. The work that she does is a work that builds capacity in ourselves and others. It has, we were talking about exit strategies. Her work has exit strategies. Every project that they do is a 3 to 5 year time frame, and it's based on the needs of the community. It's all about growing in and listening and not assuming anything and not trying to fix, but allowing this community to participate and to be a part of and to be the owners of their transformation. And when she told us about her model, we were excited. We said, this is great. We want to see more. So she took us on a journey with her to see places like where she was working. That's Florence. She took us to Kibera settlement. I don't know if you're familiar with Kibera. It's the second largest informal settlement in the world. And she showed us a medical clinic there that they had started that was a world-class medical clinic. Matter of fact, the work that they're doing there is so extraordinary that the government of Kenya uses the statistics from this clinic for TB rates and HIV rates and other things for Kibera rather than their own, because theirs are better than the government's. And this is a clinic that's operated by people living in Kibera. It's not run by folks from the outside. The people in Kibera have been trained to operate the equipment, to run the place. I met a lady who does dental work, and she had been trained by other physicians to do the dental work. This is a factory, a shoe factory in the basement of a church on the edge of Kibera, and they're making Conjo shoes. Conjo means beauty in Amharic, and these are flip-flops that they're selling in the European and North American market. And I met some of these ladies and talked to them and heard their stories, and some of them, their poverty had brought them to a place where they had to prostitute themselves in order to support their families. But now they're in a job that gave them dignity, that allowed them to participate in this work. And they were not just, doing the work, they're also involved in the major decisions that are a part of this business that they're doing. And that was just an extraordinary thing to see. Florence also took us to Jamaica, where I met this extraordinary lady, Sister Ellis. And Sister Ellis is a community leader. She's an entrepreneur. She is a business owner. She's a chicken farmer. And when Life in Abundance came along, she was destitute. Her husband was an alcoholic. She was caring for her grandchildren. She had no money. And when they came into the community and said, "What is it that you need?" They said, "We need jobs." And so they set up a community where they would pool their resources, pool their funds, and then invest in businesses around the Cross Keys community in Jamaica. And her investment, they invested in her to start a chicken business. And this was her third batch of chickens that she was showing me. And she was so excited with just tears in her eyes and a light in her eyes. She told us about how she now had money to feed her family, to put uniforms on her grandchildren. But more than anything, she said, the most exciting thing to me is that when I go to church, I can put my tithe money in the offering plate. And that just impacted me that, again, she wanted to know the dignity and the joy of giving. And I saw her I had an opportunity to sit in the meetings where they listened to proposals for other business opportunities and ask questions of future entrepreneurs or other entrepreneurs, and to listen to her ask these probing and just incredible business questions. I was like, wow, she's been well trained. She knows her business, and she's just an extraordinary woman. We went to Thika. We went to Thika, which is Thika. It's a little village outside of Nairobi, and it's also a place where there's a pretty large informal settlement. And we participated in a Life in Abundance sponsored medical mission trip. This was the most unusual medical mission trip I've ever been a part of. I've probably participated or helped support dozens, maybe into the hundreds of medical mission trips. And this one was like none other that I've been a part of. We did not lead, we did not organize, we did not do the logistics, we didn't plan, we didn't do anything. Everything was organized and planned by the community leaders living in Thika. Everything. From who went where to when it happened, to the schedule, to everything. Even the doctors were Kenyan doctors. And we brought along with us several physicians and nurses from North America. And we had several of us on the team that participated in just helping out as well. This man in the picture there, you'll see him in the scrubs. His name is Magdi Khalil. He is a physician from Louisville, Kentucky. And Magdi had gone on, he said, about 10 medical mission trips with another large relief organization that you'll recognize the name if I told you, but there's no point in that. But the point is he had gone before, and every time he had gone on these medical mission trips, he had been put in a hotel room, and he saw the hotel room and the clinic, the hotel room and the clinic for 7 to 10 days every time. And he saw hundreds, maybe thousands of patients during the week. And the point was, at the end of the week, how many patients did you see? That was the metric of success. This trip was different. He wasn't in charge. He was a consult. He sat alongside a Kenyan doctor. And it made him uncomfortable at first. And, he was like, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my time? I'm kind of bored. I'm used to being busy. And he had the opportunity to visit people in the community, to go to where they lived in their homes, to meet people where they were. And at the end of the week, Magdi had an epiphany. And he said to us, I get it now. It's Kenyan doctors treating Kenyan people who are suffering from Kenyan diseases with Kenyan cures and medicines. That's the way it should be. He got it. And he came home and he said, I want to do things differently. I want to be a part of doing things differently. Now, I wish I could say that everyone I have taken to be a part of these capacity building mission models had the Magdi epiphany or some version of that. But I'm sorry to say that they haven't. And I don't know what it is. Honestly, that's again, I'm on journey. I haven't figured this out. I've become a shameless advocate for these mission models, and I'm doing everything I can to provide opportunities for our people to participate, to come alongside, to see and engage, to meet people like Sister Ellis, and to meet people like the ladies working in the shoe factory with Conjo shoes. I'm doing all that I can, and I've taken a few teams, and we've gone to see that. But people come back with more questions. They come back more wondering things like, what am I to do? What's my part in this? What is, this is different. So where do we engage? What is this all about? And I hear more questions than I do answers. But I'm still participating, and I'm still taking folks to see that we have ones and twos, people one or two at a time that say, I get it. We were talking yesterday to Jonathan. He said, yes, focus on those folks that get it, that want to participate, that want to be a part of that, who know their place, who are willing to come alongside and encourage, who don't need to be, I like to say in terms of, we're human beings, we're not human doings. And to come be and journey and come alongside these folks as they're taking ownership of their own transformation. Now, it is an uphill slog. It's difficult, but I've come to find that the reason that I continue on in this, and the reason that I believe that it's important that we pursue 3.0 or capacity building mission models or whatever, is I believe that in these mission models, we see the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, so clearly played out, lived out. Now, as I understand the good news of Christ, we're all in poverty. Jesus put the metaphors used to help us understand the atonement of what Jesus did for us. We are likened to orphans. We are likened to people in extraordinary, overwhelming debt. We are likened to people who are even imprisoned. Those are the metaphors to describe us before God did what he did through Jesus Christ. Now, God didn't come through Jesus Christ and just set us, he didn't just get rid of our debt. He didn't just make us children. He didn't just set us free. That's true, but it's even further than that. You see, God came in Jesus Christ. And yes, he relieved us from our debt. He set us free from our debt, but then he made us stewards of unimaginable riches. He did something we never imagined. We thought we're debt-free. No, you're debt-free, and then now I'm giving you unimaginable riches to oversee, not to own, to be stewards of. He didn't just make us children of God, he made us co-heirs with Christ. We're to rule and reign with Christ, co-kings and queens with Christ. That's amazing. And he didn't just set us free from prison. He gave us the keys and said, go set others free as well. You see, the gospel is about capacity building. There's so many images and pictures of capacity building. And I got to tell you, one of the things that just breaks my heart is when I'm talking to somebody about this sort of thing. And I was at a missions conference last week, and a guy sat next to me, and gave him the elevator speech of this, and he said, that's just not biblical, friend. The poor will always be with you. I said, no, that's not what I understand Scripture to be saying. There's so many images. One of my favorites, and I'll close with this, is the story of Elisha and that widow, the prophet's widow. One of the prophets had died, and Elisha was traveling through, and she came out and she said, Elisha, I'm destitute, I'm dying. What am I going to do? Help me, Elisha. And Elisha said, I love the prophetic voice, by the way, because it's so uncompassionate. I mean, he says literally, what can I do for you? What do you have? And the widow says, I've got nothing. Wait, except for a little jar of oil. He said, go, take what you have with the help of your community and the people around you, pour it into jars, sell it, make money, survive, and thrive. Bye, I'm going my way. And Elisha leaves. I think that's such an incredible image for us, for this 3.0, for this big picture, for what we're talking about here. We need to learn. We need to be willing to look at these models and see these ways that we can build capacity in others. And by the way, what we learn is it builds capacity in us. We learn more from them. We realize our need. So friends, I'm thrilled to be journeying with you on this journey. I'm grateful to be a part of this. We hadn't got it figured out, and we're moving on, and God is revealing, and it's good to be a part of this journey. Thank you.